All right, we got another episode of the Hunt Suburbia podcast. And in case you guys can't see, if you're listening on streaming, you don't see the video. I am in the bedroom today, not in the studio. Um, and one of the reasons is I want to talk about betting today a little bit. This is going to be another solo podcast for now. And talk about betting because up until now, probably been hunting. You guys probably been hunting scrapes, which is great. Trying to get close to your big bucks bedroom, which is also a great strategy early season. They're not getting up and moving as much, and definitely not in daylight. So you want to get close to the bedroom. But now it's October 23rd right now when I'm recording this. This will come out on like the 26th. Now you kind of got to switch. Yeah, you can still hunt those bedrooms if you want. If you got good access, hunt those buck bedrooms. But me personally, I'm going to start hunting the doe beds a lot more. So there's over the years, I've found a couple of dynamite doe bedding areas. One that I hunt quite a bit that's got 10 to 12 does consistently in one small area of, jack pine, small evergreen trees where they feel pretty secure. And then I've got another doe bedding area where I shot that buck on the ground a few years ago. So getting up closer to those as the bucks are going to start getting more into their rut craze here. I've been seeing a lot of rutting activity, and I see some comments sometimes, people messaging me and stuff. It's when I say rutting activity, I don't mean peak rut. It's pre-rut activity. They're pestering does. I've had a couple of mature bucks last week that were pestering does starting October 10th. And just years past, I hadn't seen that too much until about this week, until October 23rd, 24th, last week of October, I started to see some deer pestering does, 3-year-olds. But this year it was weird. I saw that a lot that week, the 10th, through the 17th. A lot of activity, and there's not full on chasing. They're not going all out until they get the doe. They're just pestering them. They're pushing them for 300, 400 yards and giving up. The does peel off. But I saw that a lot last week, and it got me excited. And I just happened to be hunting last week where all that was happening was near the doe bedding. I don't have a particular big buck in that area. There's just quite a few, nice bucks, 3 and 4-year-olds running around. So I wasn't hunting any particular buck bedding. I was up close to that doe bedding. Just wanted to see some deer, get some sits under my belt. And that's how that activity happened. But I was there when that pre-rut was kicking off. And that's what you guys should be trying to do. Find some doe bedding where if you got cameras that have a lot of does on them and not a lot of bucks yet. These next few days in particular, tomorrow and Friday, we've got a cold front. It's been really hot this week. It's been highs in the 80s some days and in the 70s like today, and lows in the 50s. And tomorrow we're going to get back down into the high 30s in some towns in Massachusetts. And then Friday is going to be in the low to mid 30s as a low. So nice cold front right at that point where that pre-rut's starting to kick into rut. We might get some does coming into, real heat. What I think we were seeing last week, the 15th was the day that I had all that crazy action. I don't think that those does were actually in heat. Maybe they were almost there and it was just happening early, but there just seemed to be more bucks pestering does than usual. So that's going to change this week. So does are going to start coming into heat. Yeah, it might be the 2 and 3-year-olds that are going to do a lot of the chasing early on, because I found that those mature bucks will wait. They've got a few ruts under their belt. They know that the does aren't really ready yet, but those young deer don't know that, and they're going to go crazy. But that doesn't mean there's not outliers. It doesn't mean your big target buck isn't going to be on his feet in daylight, following a doe or keeping tabs on what's going on. And trying to push those younger bucks out. That can certainly happen. So it's going to be a great week of hunting. And I want to talk about just kind of go over the story of Spooky, the really big buck that I've been trying to figure out since hunt stock, and just kind of do a beginning to end on where I am with him so far. I think tomorrow and Friday are going to be my best days, my best chances at killing him, with the cold front coming in, with him kind of getting closer to daylight on some of my cameras. I think before the rut really kicks in full swing, when he could be, God knows where. Right now I'm in what I think is his core, but still no daylight stuff. But I want to just kind of go through his story, so I have it documented, and so you guys can kind of follow along on it, just in case I get lucky enough to kill him tomorrow or Friday. I'd like to have his story out there up to this point. So started out at Huntstock. One of the podcast listeners, one of you guys, I was working the admissions tent at Huntstock there for a couple hours one day, and this gentleman, really nice guy, shakes my hand and says a bunch of nice things. He's been listening to the podcast for a while. He grew up where I grew up in Vermont. We even went to the same high school, but a few years in between when we graduated. But he was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." And he pulled me aside. He's like, "Listen, man, I don't suburban hunt. I don't, I have a bow, but I haven't bow hunted in many years. I enjoy doing my hunts in the big woods, with a gun in my hand, kind of save all my days for Maine type hunter." But he's like, "Listen, I live in a good spot for bow hunting. I just don't do it. And you're more than welcome to hunt my property, hunt the pieces that abut it behind my property. That is, public land and open to the public. If you want to come check it out after hunt stock, by all means do it." So that's awesome. I mean, I'm not really a door knocker. I don't go around looking for private permission and stuff, but this guy was such a nice guy. We've got some good connections together, growing up in the same place. And the kicker was that he showed me some bucks that he's had on his cameras over the years, going through his backyard. He's got a pretty big backyard. He's got multiple trail cameras back there, and it's just a nice little pocket of good genetics. And there were some nice deers. There were some slammers on there, and the one that he showed me, that's just head and shoulders above all the other ones, is one that now I'm calling Spooky. But he is an old deer. This guy's had him on camera for 5 years or so, going through his backyard. Most of his pictures are middle of the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and most of them were December and January. So late season, coming out onto the yards to, eat shrubs, forage on people's plants and things like that, as deer often do in the suburbs once all the acorns dry up, things like that. So this buck was on camera there consistently for many years, December and January. And I looked at it, and it looked very similar to a picture that Pat Burns had sent to me, that he got from some unnamed source. And it was a really nice deer. That was from this season. The picture I saw from the guy who gave me the permission was from last year, in December 2023. But I could tell, like, ooh, that looks like the same deer. So hunt stock ends. I do all the post hunt stock stuff I have to do, decompress for a couple weeks, go on vacation with the family, and when I get back, I drive up to this guy's spot and give it a look, and go in there with a few cameras. I think I had one Moultrie Mobile, or two that I didn't have deployed from my previous year's cameras. Brought those up. Brought I think 3 or 4 regular SD card cams, and scouted the woods behind his house. And, you know, not a gigantic piece of woods. Took me 3-4 hours to kind of cover the whole thing. I didn't see a lot of buck sign in there. Very few scrapes. You know, I couldn't really get on. I was looking for some annual scrapes. Couldn't really find any. I think I found one and put a non cell cam on that. And then I put those Moultrie the Moultrie cells up on deer trails, just faint trails that you can see through the woods, that didn't appear to be something that humans would be walking on, but just nice deer trails, and set them up and left. Went on a different vacation with my wife. She booked quite a few because I'm really busy. January up through the end of hunt stock, it's really hard to find any time to go on a vacation. So they were just short vacations, but we went somewhere else. I came back, went to go check those cameras. A lot of them just didn't have much on them at all. There were a couple of deer, there were some bear, but no giant. So those cameras that I saw that were kind of on the far ends of this place and different outskirts, packed them up. And there were a few cameras that I had a really nice 10-pointer and a nice 8-pointer on, both beautiful deer. They were traveling together. And they were in a few places consistently. So I started honing in on those places that they were in consistently. But there was still no sign of the big buck on any of the cameras. So I start to think, all right, well, maybe this is just his core in December and January. Maybe this is his late season spot and he summers somewhere else. So putting some pieces together, and doing some sleuthing and hearing some rumors and things like that, there was a patch of woods about 4 miles away, which to me, it didn't really add up, but I had to get in there anyway, get some cameras, cover that spot just to see if maybe that's where he is in the summer and the early season. But for me, a buck that's that old and that big, traveling 4 miles, in pretty suburban area, crossing a lot of main streets, that didn't add up. Because I think, deer will do that in the big woods, travel those really big distances. But I know there's a lot of hunters in this area, and he would be much more well-known and much more likely to have been killed if he is a big mover like that. I mean, I think he's 10 years old. So it just seemed something wasn't adding up, that might be where he's summering. But anyway, I get into there. That's a big patch of woods, I don't know, 800 acres, something like that, maybe 1,000. And I get, but the same first day that I went up to put cameras in, this private permission spot that backs up to the small public, that day I dropped a bunch of cameras in there. So after I checked the cameras, where Spooky is, in December and January, I drove down to that place and checked those cameras, and there was not even like a mature buck on any of those either. So they were all on a super southern end they were like on the southern part of the southern half of that big patch of woods, where I did see some decent sign, but there were just no mature bucks on the cams. So that day I moved all of those cameras up to the northern side. I still haven't gone back in and checked on them. Just because I ended up on my next check going to, what I think is, what I thought previously was his late season core area. I went back in there, and that's when I got the first video proof that, he was in there and he was alive. And this was in September. It was September 24th, 9:30 p.m. Just one nice video of him. And it was a perfect video, coming right at the camera and walking right by it within, 5 feet. And I was ecstatic when I got that. So now I know, all right, he is in here, and he's in here early season, and he's in here late season. This is probably his core. It's probably where he spends most of his time, where he's comfortable, where he's got his bedding areas down. He just knows what he's doing in this spot. And then that all made sense to my original theory that if he's that old, that big, in this particular place, I just don't see him moving a ton. Of course, he's going to move over a road or 2 roads or 3 roads, especially during the rut. Every buck's going to do that. But moving 4.5 miles and crossing 30 roads and a couple of major highways, I didn't see it. So I got the confirmation he was in here early season. So that kind of reinvigorated me. So then I moved, once I got that confirmation, I moved 6 Moultrie cell cameras in there the next time I went up, which was, I think, the Friday before the opener. And my goal then was to just look around and find scrapes, because now they're starting to really open up scrapes, that last week of September and then into October. You should be able to find some scrapes. So I went in there with a mission to find scrapes, and I put a few more cameras out, Moultries on those scrapes. Dropped some of Chad's backyard sense into them, and added a bunch of non-cell cameras too. I think I have like 10 or 11 cameras in there total right now. I didn't get another picture, which I always request for videos. If it's a picture of a buck, immediately request for the video. You learn a lot from video, travel direction, behavior, how he approaches, how cautious he is, that kind of a thing. But I didn't get another video until, let me look, I think it was like October 17th. So it was like 3 weeks between that picture on the 24th to the 17th. So that just shows you how sneaky he is. In addition to being spooky, he's sneaky. I named him Spooky, by the way, because I texted a video to that video, the 24th, to a friend of mine, Connor, and he just replied with one word: spooky. Because he looks pretty spooky. He's not a beautiful deer in the sense of the word. He's symmetrical and got tall tines, and he's just he's a ghoul. He's like a ghoul of a buck. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He's got some kickers and some splits and things like that. So I get that picture. I texted to him. He says spooky. That's what I end up calling him. October, I think it was 17th. I'll double check dates and stuff later. And if I am lucky enough to get him, I'll put together, his whole story into a nice video with all the dates and things like that, and all these great videos I've been getting of him. But I think it's the 17th, and he's hitting a scrape, that's not far behind the house. I think it's actually even on the property of this landowner who I met at Huntstock that gave me this great access. There he is in all his glory, 5-6 feet in front of me is the licking branch, just working that licking branch. Then every day since then, I've been getting him, with the exception of last night, but every day since then, he's hit at least one of the scrapes that my camera's on. He's hit 4 different scrapes, and I have my climber set up on the scrape. Just coincidentally, I set it up the same day that I brought in the Moultrie reinforcements, and I had found a new scrape that day that I didn't know about. It was a nice one. It was an annual scrape. It's got, a nice thick root that's been dug around over the years. I know it's an annual scrape, and I picked out a tree that day that was 20 yards off of that, put the stand on it, just taking into account the winds and stuff, normally being west, northwest. It just found a tree that was southeast of it, perfectly 20 yards away from the scrape, nice distance away. And I don't know why I chose. I mean, I just because that scrape was great and it just looked good with the wind setup, I chose that tree. Well, that's the camera that he's been hitting the most, but he is definitely getting more active here. He's been more active over this past week. Every night, getting at least one video, some nights 3 or 4 videos and across 3 or 4 different cameras. These cameras aren't particularly too far apart from each other. They're all probably within 400-yard diameter circle. So he's working that area. I think it is his core. There's a few swamps. They're not gigantic swamps, but a few swamps around, probably 5 to 10 acres each. And I think that's, he bounces between those. Maybe he favors one over the other. I haven't been able to really put together a travel pattern on which way he's coming, where he's truly coming from, because he's coming from different directions. But those 2 swamps are kind of what I'm keeping in mind on where I'm going to hunt them. So it's been exciting getting those videos. Again, 7:30. He hit that scrape at 7:30. That's the closest I've had him to daylight. 7:30 p.m. And coming out of one of those swamps. That's the only direction of travel really that I was able to make out in relation to the swamps. Was that night he was coming from one of those small swamps at 7:30 and hit that scrape. And that just happens to be where my climber is set up. So I'm excited about it because tomorrow we got the cold front coming in. It's going to be cold in the morning. It's going to be 15, 20 degrees colder than it has been this past week. And the wind is good for me to get into that exact spot and hope that it being cold with the rut, the does starting to get into their cycles here. All the buck activity kind of picking up, maybe, hopefully he'll still be on his feet in the morning. So October cold fronts, you can't beat it. So I'm excited about tomorrow. If I don't shoot him tomorrow, and I'll probably do an all-day sit tomorrow and probably Friday as well. If I don't shoot him tomorrow, Friday's getting even colder. I think Friday is an awesome day. Same type of wind, same stand. I think it's my best shot at getting him these next 2 days. I don't hunt Saturdays very often. Maybe I'll be able to get out Saturday morning as well if I don't get him the next 2 days and have a shot. And then after that, I just think next week it's going to be anybody's ball game. There are quite a few hunters around. I talked to the town conservation office in this town last week, and just trying to get some information from her and double checking every place in the area that you can hunt, properties that you can't hunt, where there are properties where, parts of it you can and the other parts you can't. She went through all of that stuff with me, which was awesome. I think we had like a half-hour conversation just talking about deer hunting and talking about the town. She was super helpful. And she told me that, this is a famous buck in town. I mean, everybody's kind of been the talk of the town for many years. And she's just like, you got a lot of competition on him. And I knew that it would. A buck of this caliber, there's going to be a lot of people hunting him. So she told me where she had seen him personally, because she had seen him. I actually met a dog walker that day that was coming down that faint trail that I didn't think people used. And that was my camera that's been on that trail hasn't got another human being. But that day while I was in there, while I was at that trail, setting up a new camera on a scrape that was like 20 yards off of it, a fresh scrape I hadn't seen before. While I was setting that camera up, I see some hunter orange coming through. I originally thought it was a hunter, but turned out to be a dog walker. And I met her, talked with her. She was really nice. She lived on the other side of this piece. She was coming in the totally opposite way, and that's just where she likes to walk her dog. And she was like, yeah, I just researched, archery season like the other day and when hunting started. And that's why I'm wearing the orange, because we're in season. And she had seen this buck over the years too. She said, this is the biggest buck you've ever seen in your life. Before I even mentioned anything, like I'm in there looking for that particular buck, she's offering, oh yeah, you should see this one that I've seen over here in this spot. I saw him driving at night, standing on the side of the road, and he's the biggest buck you would ever see. And I knew who she was talking about. But I was able to piece together, some of the things about that buck, and he definitely does travel. He goes where people have seen him, is up to a mile away from where I'm hunting him. So I just know that I don't have long before he's going to get out of this spot and start doing his thing, covering his territory, looking for does, pushing out other bucks, all of that stuff. It's happening soon. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week, when you guys are listening to this, it'll be the last 3 days, before this podcast comes out, is my best chance. So I hope I get a shot at him. I've only been up here to this property now 4 times, but each time I've gone, I've learned something new. I've taken my time, and I think I've shrunk down where he's living a majority of the time. Just going up 4 different times, and I've learned a lot from just those little small interactions. You see a dog walker in the woods, talk to him. Call your town conservation office and get some information that way. I mean, folks are more than willing to give you some information. You never know how that might help your hunt, especially if you're after a particular buck, and if he's a really big one, that stands out versus the other deer in the area. That's going to be a deer people talk about. So it's been fun. I've hunted there 4 sits as well. Like, I've been doing hybrid scouts and hunts the last 3 times. The first couple of times, I guess I've been there 5 times. The first couple of times I went up, I was just running cameras, and it was preseason. But now that I go up to hunt, I've been hunting it. The first time I hunted it was the evening. Second time I hunted it was the evening. And now these 3rd and 4th times were morning hunts, because the wind just worked better for me to try to get them going back into one of those swamps in the morning. And I haven't seen a ton of deer. I've seen 1 buck from stand. The last sit I was in there, a doe came out of that swamp at like 7:30 in the morning, running through it. And I was thinking, oh, here he comes. He's going to be right on her, chasing her out of that swamp. But nothing else came out of that swamp after the doe did. But so I've been hunting until 9:30, 10 a.m. Just don't think that he would be up on his feet that late this early in the season. So I'd get down from my stand and I'd go check all of my non-cell cameras and see, all right, he was here last night on my Moultrie. He was here over here on my Moultrie. Let's see if he hit any of the other non-cells that I have spread out, because that might help me with, direction of travel and kind of piecing the puzzle together.
What do you want from your trail cameras? I know what I want. You basically just want to make sure that if a buck walks in front of it, the camera is capturing it, plain and simple, right? And with cell cameras, you want to make sure that after it captures it, it's getting sent to you and it's not getting hung up somewhere, and you don't have to worry about, oh, did you format the SD card the right way, or did you use the right SIM card with the right cellular network, or what did you do that is making this image get caught up? With Moultrie Mobile, you don't have to worry about that. I've been using Moultrie Mobile cell cams for 5 years now. The ones that I bought 5 years ago are still working. They're outdated now, but they're still working. But this year I'm running 20 Moultrie Edge 2 Pro cell cams, and I know when I put that into a tree, it is giving me the confidence that it's working. And there's brands out there where you just don't know, and you don't have the confidence when it's up in a tree, and then you have to talk to customer service, and you have to go through a whole line of troubleshooting items. With the Moultrie mobile cameras, they make it super simple. They have an auto connect feature, which will find the strongest cell signal around from the 4 major networks and automatically connect to that, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to install a SIM card. You don't have to bring an SD card and format it. Everything is built into the camera. The technology is all built into it, and that leads to a reliable camera that I can be confident in. And if you guys are looking for the right cell cam, if you already run cell cameras, you run different brands, I recommend getting a couple of these Moultrie Edge 2 Pros or any of the Edge 2 cell cams in that series, and just give them a shot. Run them against the other cameras that you have, and you will you'll be happy with the results. So Go check them out. Don't just capture images, gather intelligence with the Moultrie Mobile Edge 2 camera series paired with the super simple and easy to use Moultrie Mobile app. You can learn more at moultrieproducts.com. Vortex Optics has sponsored the podcast. I have been a user of Vortex my entire bow hunting career. I've used their Diamondback 10 by 42 binoculars. I've used their laser rangefinder. And when I went out to North Dakota, I used a spotting scope out there, one of their angled spotting scopes to spot game far away. And Vortex is just a great company. I've obviously gotten to know them at Huntstock over the past few years. And they've got great customer service, an awesome warranty program, and really good optics that don't break the bank. So if you guys are in need of any binoculars, scopes, they've got, red dots and other optics for rifles and gun hunting, or, binos, rangefinders, spotting scopes, tripods. You cannot go wrong with Vortex. So visit www.vortexoptics.com.
Any of the other non-cells that I have spread out, because that might help me with, direction of travel and kind of piecing the puzzle together. And a couple of times he was on a few of those other ones. A few of those other ones were on scrapes. And in this past week, I've gobbled up a few more Moultries that I have up closer to my house from where I'm hunting this big buck down here. Up closer to my house, I had a bunch of cameras that were kind of slow, or they needed new batteries and they were slow. So I scooped those up, I think, on Sunday, and just had them ready, with Spooky's name on them. So the very last sit that I went up there where I saw that doe, I brought those Moultries up with me, and I checked all those non-cell cams, and wherever Spooky was on those non-cell cams, I switched those with the Moultrie. So now I've got 6 Moultries, and 5 of them are on scrapes. One of them is in a swamp that's a little bit further away. Before I had him coming in October 17th, I put that Moultrie kind of on a far end in a little pinch point to see if he was coming in and out of there. And maybe that was his core. Maybe that was his bedding area, but I've only got a few does on that camera so far. So 5 of those Moultries are on scrapes. Those are the best. That's just the best place to put a camera, especially right now. And especially if you're trying to, hone in on a target buck, get on the scrapes. I'll probably leave that one in that swamp through the rut, the one that's far on the pinch point, even though it's not on a scrape. I'll probably leave it there and just see, maybe he goes through there in the rut. Maybe that's a place, because pinch points are a great place to be able to ambush your target deer if they're moving, which I know he does during the rut. So we'll keep that one there. We'll have these 5 on these scrapes right now, and keep tabs. But hopefully I can get it done in the next couple of days. I definitely need some luck. He hasn't been in a daylight picture yet, so it's gonna need some luck. But we got the weather working for us. The cold front's gonna be awesome. I've got some of the smaller bucks on camera fighting in front of a few of these cameras. The Big 10 and the Big 8 are still in there. And it's going to be really, really hard to pass those deer if they come in front of me in the next few days. But I think I have to. I'm really in there just for Spooky. And this access is so nice that I just think if I kill Spooky in there, then I want some more bucks, some nice bucks to hunt in the future years. So I don't mind letting that 10 and that 8 get another year older too. So if I happen to see them, probably going to give them the pass, just because I think these next few days are my best opportunity. What else? I took out Malik from last week's podcast. Took out Malik last night for a hunt. We went on the ground. We went into my favorite, my best spot that I hunt closer to home, where I've saw all that pre-rut activity last week. Saw those bucks, pestering those does right next to the doe bedding. That's where I brought in Malik. Thought it was our best opportunity to get him some action, but it was just hot. It was high 70s, low 80s at the peak that day. although it did feel like it cooled down a little bit last night. I went in a t-shirt, and it got a little bit chilly at last light, but we didn't see anything. But I think I was able to, at least he got an experience. He added an experience to his resume. I showed him a bunch of fresh scrapes on the way in, and taught him a few things on your ingress and egress. Like, for instance, where we sat was along a rock wall. Rock wall is like 3-4 feet high. You sit down, it basically came up to our eyes, so we could see the other side of it, but it provided a lot of cover. And we had a low part in the wall going down a hill in front of us where deer, bucks, I've had a lot of mature bucks cross down there a lot. I've had cameras on it over the years that scrape down there. We were shooting down to that trail 20 yards away, but we had to cross it to get into where we were sitting. And then we turned around and faced the way that we came from. Just the way the wind was. It was an awkward wind last night. I don't normally do that. I like to have it be virgin in front of me and not put any scent out of there when I get into a stand, like the wind in my face. But this particular sit, we had to cross that path to get up to where we were sitting and then look back down on the path. So we put some dough and heat on our boots and walked that path, making sure that we walked where we crossed it was exactly where we were going to be shooting down into, so that a deer wouldn't get spooked over here where we don't have a shot, or they'd get spooked over here. If you just walked in a random way and sat, a deer might smell that and just turn around and keep going. You never get a shot. So if you cross right where you want to shoot, you at least have a little buffer and a little leeway. And what we did too was just sprayed, kind of a 2 or 3 second spray of that dough and heat right in that spot too. So it's a pungent spot, more likely to have a deer stop and kind of smell that. Whoa, that's strong, and give you some time to shoot. So I was taught him, hopefully that helps him when he's thinking about where to set up. And if he has to have a situation where you have to shoot back towards your ingress, hopefully he learned something there. So little things like that. And then we had great conversation the whole time, whisper conversations. I had a great time with him. Just wish we could have seen something and had an opportunity in action, but we didn't. It was just super hot. Now, next week, if I take him into that spot, the action's going to be great. I know it is. It always is, last week of October and, right around that November, Halloween, 1st of November timeframe. It's great in there, but he is moving to Missouri November 1st, so I don't know if we'll have another chance to hunt together. But he mentioned that a few of you guys who listen to the podcast reached out to him and offered to take him out too, and I think he's already taken one person up on that. So thanks, guys, whoever did that. It's nice to get a new hunter, a little mentor, take a new hunter out, whether it's a kid or it's an adult like Malik who's just starting. If they don't have anybody else to take them out, it's a nice thing to do, and it goes a long, long ways. So I think that's basically where I'm at. What I want to do is I'm focusing everything on spooky right now, so I'm going to be avoiding hunting, these spots up around my house. I think until spooky's just out of the area. I don't know. I think I've got quite a few long drives down to spooky spot in my future until somebody else kills him or until I get the opportunity on him. And then I'll focus more closer to home, and we'll see what that brings. And if I end up getting spooky tomorrow or Friday or Saturday, then I'll take Malik out again next week. But the action is just heating up so much, and it's been so fun to put this puzzle together so far, that this next week is probably going to be a bunch of solo missions. Other than that, what else have I been seeing? Obviously, the acorns, we covered that before. Acorns are absolutely everywhere. So deer haven't been moving as much. They've, as you see in previous seasons, if you got a couple of trees that are just producing, or you got one ridge that's loaded with acorns, but the rest of the woods is barren, and obviously then you're on them. And deer are moving in and out of that spot a lot. So those are dynamite spots. Years like this, you really have to find where they're bedding, and you got to just hunt the does. And we got these next few weeks here, next 3 weeks are going to be awesome. That's going to force movement. So the acorns, were forcing non-movement, because they don't have to move very far. But now, no matter what, nature's kicking in, and the rut is going to force movement. So get into your spot, your typical rut spots, even if there's no acorns in there. Get next to does, and hunt hard, and definitely start hunting the mornings. If you're somebody who normally just hunts evenings, if you have the time, get in the mornings. The mornings have been great to me over the years. It's colder in the mornings. I just see the majority of that rut activity, chasing and the fighting and all that stuff happens in the morning. Now, last year I saw a ton of deer, a ton of nice bucks between 10 o'clock and 1 p.m., 10 and 2, that midday. I saw a lot of nice bucks last year. But they didn't seem to be, the ones I saw, they weren't, of course they do chase during that time. But what I saw last year was they were just kind of walking and searching, ranging during that time, which is cool. But that rutting activity, can't get enough of it. You can't beat the morning for that. So if you haven't been hunting the mornings, I would recommend hunting the mornings. I'd definitely recommend hunting 20, 30 yards from a scrape that you can shoot into and finding the does, hunting those. But that's it, I think, for updates right now. Kind of a short podcast. I've got the Tom Miranda podcast in the bank that I recorded at my deer camp earlier this spring. We're going to put that one out within the next couple of weeks, and we will get some guests on. It's been really busy, just busy time. Hunting season, it's really hard to find time to get hunters to leave or take a day off and come and do the podcast. But we will definitely have some guests on. If you're listening to this and you want to be a guest, I can also do them over Riverside, which is my online studio that I'm recording on now. We can do that too. Like if you want to get on the podcast, you've got a good story to tell, you got a buck that you're chasing, or you've got some good experience. Yes, I like having new hunters on like Malik and things like that, but I can only do so many of those in a row. I know that, you guys like hearing local bow hunters that have a lot of experience, and local hunters, doesn't have to be a bow hunter, that have experience under their belt hunting Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, but obviously living in Massachusetts, the guests are going to skew a little bit more Massachusetts. So if you have any time and you'd like to get on the podcast, we can either do an in-person podcast or happy to do one over Riverside as well. Just send me a DM, let me know, and we'll get some of you guys in the books too. Thanks to Moultrie, thanks to Vortex for sponsoring the podcast. Wearing a Vortex hat here, you see all the sweat marks. That's how you put your hat to use. That's how you were doing a lot of boots on the ground when it was hot out. Get those sweat marks on your hats. But thanks to Moultrie, thanks to Vortex for the partnerships, and wish me luck on Spooky. If I do kill him, I don't think that I will release the pictures. I'll probably be pretty mum about it, at least until this podcast comes out. But maybe if I'm lucky, we'll see pictures of them next week. So knock on wood. I hope I can get them. It's a deer of a lifetime, and it's been a lot of fun trying to figure them out. But we'll see you guys on the podcast next week. Thanks for listening.